Good morning. Good morning. Well, I am excited to get started today. And let me just say that it is a great day. It is a great day. And are you ready to hear about why I don't like bananas in my smoothie? Or what that means? Before we get started, what I want to do is to really just get you guys on the right page. Okay. So the first thing is to remind you that you need to put on your full armor of God every day. How many of you did that? Right. And then what I also want to remind you about is that on Thursday at 12:30, I am doing a Q&A. So maybe today's training will spark some questions for you. And I encourage you to ask those questions in advance. So I have a little bit of time to prepare. I know I have 1 or 2 questions already, but let's ask those questions. You can comment to the event. So just go to the event and then comment what your questions are. I'd love to be able to answer those. The other thing I really want to encourage you to do, if you feel so led, is to go check out ipdcoachingacademy.com for the Embrace Your Position of Power program that's going to be starting this fall. And I'm only selecting 10. So if you feel like God is nudging you to do something more, to become more, I want to encourage you to go check that out and apply. Okay. I'm going to be sending out priority registrations to those that I think would really benefit from the program that have filled out those applications. So go ahead and check that out at ipdcoachingacademy.com. So this morning, we're talking about bananas in smoothies or not, right? And what does this mean? I really don't like bananas in my smoothies. I really, really don't like bananas in my smoothies. That is just something I can't stand. All right. So my question though is this: what if God required us to have bananas in our smoothies? So you've heard me say this before, that when we're born, we are separated from God. It's at this point that we really begin to develop our worldview, a conscious or maybe even subconscious response to the world around us. And whether you believe in God or not, we are all pretty much in a blender. We're choosing which fruits that we want to have or add to our smoothie. We're choosing how we want to live our lives, et cetera, et cetera. We have grown up learning that we can really choose how we make our smoothies based on the experiences that we've had, what we've learned to accept or tolerate. And all of this is based on the information we receive from the people and the things around us. The biblical view is to understand that one's existence is to serve and love God, and that we don't get to decide how to make our own smoothies. We simply follow his directions. However, many of us are somewhere, I would say, between the two, the worldview and God's view, the worldview and the biblical view. And we're really just still caught in the blender, right? We're blending a little bit of the world with a little bit of what God says. Recently, a friend of mine shared this following video that I'm going to show you, and it really stuck with me. Maybe you've seen it and maybe you haven't, but let's take a look at it now. And I think it's really important for you to know that it was recorded, all right, on April 3rd, 1965. Recorded on April 3rd, 1965. So give me a second. I want to share my screen with you, and we're going to do that. Okay, hang on one second.
If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness. And I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. Feed. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what bad is good and what's good is spoiled. And the old, I would teach to pray after me, our Father, in God. Authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I have made more money in media than in the game. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools for the because before you drug sniffing dogs and method detectors at every school in my school. I have prison over I have justice solving for me. Boys and girls and first money, but the focus of the thing is Easter and Eid and the symbol of Christmas. The devil takes from me to things to promote enmity. I was a devil. What he's doing.
Pretty powerful, huh? I would say so. So let me ask you a few questions. Do you believe in absolute moral truths, that there's only God's right and wrong? Do you believe that Jesus led a sinful life? Do you believe God is 100% in control of everything? And do you trust it? Do you believe salvation is a gift that cannot be earned? Do you believe that Satan is real? Do you believe that as a Christian, it's your responsibility, or that you have the responsibility to share your faith? If you said yes to these questions, I'm not sure that that actually means that you live it. Remember the other day, or in one of the other trainings, when I squeezed the orange, what came out? Orange juice, right? It came out. That's what's truly inside you. That's what's reflected in your actions. Does your life demonstrate your yes responses to those questions? If you're addicted to the TV, to news, to media, to secular music and things like that, and by addicted, I mean that you are exposed to it and participate in it on a daily basis, then you are allowing the worldview to permeate your mind without even realizing it. How many of us would agree that if we went out in the sun at sunup and stayed in the sun until sunset, that we would get burned? Your length of exposure to any one thing determines the level of impact that it has. So when we say we believe God's truth and then we choose to leave out one thing or two things that we don't like the banana, we present a confusing and misleading witness of our beliefs. And in all things of this world, the enemy whispers his subtle deception and philosophies that he wants us to have to really minimize and silence God's truth in our minds. When we put on that helmet of salvation, we are affirming that not only do we accept salvation as it is, but that we have a need to continually renew our minds, as it says in Romans 12, 1 and 2, and protect our minds from the attacks of the enemy. This has to be a conscious decision. We have to choose to purposely add the banana even when we don't feel like it. In this way, we're going to begin to see God at work in our lives. And that is going to then come out in the fruits that we produce. So I want you to consider these following questions to determine where you are in this scenario, to see if you've opted to leave the banana out or you are fully embracing and living out your life peacefully and in obedience to what God says. So let me be clear here. I am not getting political, all right? I am not going to answer these questions for you. What I want you to do is I want you to take a sheet of paper and I want you to really consider these questions, all right? So here we go. Number one, what is your stand on abortion? What are your thoughts on same-sex marriage? What about lying to your boss about being sick so you can get the day off, or lying that you're stuck in traffic when you're really just running late? What are your thoughts about living together before marriage? How about inflating some deductions on your taxes so you can get a little bit better return? What about taking some copy paper home from the job, from your work, for your personal printer? How about keeping the change when the cashier accidentally gives you back more than they should? What do you think about texting flirty messages to someone other than your spouse? Or throwing the wrapper from a piece of gum on the ground? How about talking about someone to a colleague or a friend? What are your thoughts about watching pornography? What do you think about taking someone's life? What about swearing? Would you sell drugs? What are your thoughts on, wishing that negative karma on that person who cut you off at the stop sign? How about, wishing and wanting that you had the Maserati that your neighbor has? You see, we are either letting our conscience be our guide, right? or we're seeking God's opinion for everything. We're either saying, but everybody else does it, it isn't a big deal, or we are held to a higher standard than that. We either say, hey, if I'm not happy, I'm not a tree, I can move. Or we say, I may not be happy, but I will not move until God moves me. And I will lean into him to teach me what I need to know. And I will find my happiness in him. We can say, I don't like bananas in my smoothie. Or we can say, okay, God, if you want bananas in my smoothie, I will put them in. So where are you out of alignment? Where are your values, your character, your attitudes? And how are they demonstrating your true beliefs? What's coming out of you? What do you need to learn? Where do you need to grow? And what needs to change? My friend, God does the how, and you do the do. So what are you going to do today? What are you going to do today that is going to put you more in alignment with what God wants for you? I wish the best for you, and I cannot wait to connect with you and hear from you and hear your comments on today's training. Make it a great day.